Ever seen a blind man cross the road, trying to make the sign? Ever seen a young girl trying to make a sale for drugs? So what becomes of you, my love?
Now I am become God, the destroyer of good.
Pray that he's still out there, somewhere.
Well, good evening. Welcome back. It's so great, as always, to reconnect with you Tuesday by Tuesday. This is Eating While Honey and Locusts, and you're with Jessica Knock and Dr. Stephen Pidgeon, publisher and creator of the Cepher. So what times do we live in? We're living in really instrumental times. And I just, as always, want to make the most of this hour and get straight into it with you. As usual, Dr. P is moving from one studio to another, so she'll be joining us shortly. But I want to speak to you from Romans 13, verses 1 to 3. Now, all of you will be familiar with that. We've been belted with this biblical verse for the last 2.5 years, 2 years, 2 months to be precise. And I want to take it differently because I want to present it to you how the apostate, how it's been presented to us so that we follow a specific narrative. This is the way that the Catholic Church and the Jesuits had actually changed it, but it's not what it's meant to be, but it's what we've had. And pulpit to pulpit, arena to arena, it doesn't matter where you hear it. This is what we've been dished out for the last 2 years, 2 months. So it reads like this. Now, this is the adapted version. This is the corrupted, not adapted, corrupted version. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment upon themselves. Just listen to what we've been provided for so long. They're telling us, we the sheeple, we are the sheep, are subject to governing authorities, but they define the governing authority as anything that has been established and then say God has established it. They're saying these authorities have been established by Yah, by God. Consequently, if you rebel, if you stand against this authority, you're standing against God's institution. Look at this abomination as such. And those who do not comply, that's what it's saying, you're bringing judgment upon yourselves. You know, that false narrative has led people into a very dangerous place for these past 2 years. People are thinking they're in a false security. We're in an okay normal. If it's not said from the church pulpit, if my pastor isn't saying it, if my leader isn't saying it, if my government isn't saying it, it's okay. It's okay. I don't need to search the word for myself. I just need to go by what they're saying because they're so trustworthy. They're so great. They love us. Wake up. This is completely different. We have to understand the agenda. We have to understand the evil devices at work, and that it is written in the prophetic books. It's written in stone, and that's what we have to navigate. We are responsible for our own destiny. We are responsible for those we have governance over. It's not as easy as what you may think it has been. So many people's lives have been jeopardized as a result of it over this period of time that I keep on reminding you of. So that's the corrupted version. But now I want to read to you the uncorrupted version, where should have been provided to us so that we knew how to live in these times, so that we know how to navigate what we are going through now. So I'm reading the same thing from the Cepher, Romans 13, the same verses 1, 2, 3. Let every soul be subject unto higher powers, for there is no power but of Elohim. The powers that are ordained are of Elohim. Whoever therefore resists these powers resists the ordinance of Elohim, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. You can see the beauty, the purity in tone, in release. But this is the important thing here, guys. They're not telling you that it is the established authorities, the governmental authorities, the ruling authorities that are the higher power. No, the higher power is who we decree and we declare our Elohim. And when you follow that path, you're following the right destiny. You're following a good course of survival. You're on track. Do you see how important these things are? Do you see how it all pieces together, how it flows together? We have to be weary. We have to question the governing authorities. Not trustworthy. See with the eyes of a prophet, sees with revelational eyes to see and ears to hear. This brings me on to what the governing authorities are telling the world. Let's consider Iran. Now, Iran is the first country, sadly, to roll out a biometric digital ID. Why? To buy food. They're saying to buy food, you'll need a digital ID. In order to eat, therefore, you need a digital ID. In order to survive, you will need a digital ID. The governing authorities are instructing that a digital ID is required in that nation. Coincidentally, this is the same digital ID the banks are saying is required to roll out the central bank digital currencies. Again, it's the same digital ID the World Economic Forum is saying is essential for the fourth industrial revolution. That's the governing authorities. And as Dr. Pidgeon would say, the Holy Roman Empire calling the Great Reset. They call it, this Holy Roman Empire calls it the Great Reset. Face it, this is exactly what it is. So you see, what Iran is implementing is food rationing, food annihilation, based on this digital package, this digital scheme, this digital ID. It's always trialed somewhere far away, somewhere far off. That's just to start with. But watch out, because it will come to a place near you. It will. And that's what we have to be aware of spiritually. That's what we have to be aware of biblically, because it is written, and physically begin to understand the footprint that we are living in. So basically, you can buy as much bread as you want, but to access subsidized prices through this digital ID, that's the only way that it can happen. And then you can access a limited amount of bread, and then the rest is available at market prices. So actually, that's not even fair to those who go and take this digital ID, because they're still controlled before going to market prices. But for anyone, until it's no longer available, you won't be able to buy at the basic price, at the nominal price. It's going to be at high, inflated prices. This is what my concern is. What about, and this is why time and time again I say, where are those who will cry and sigh for the abominations in our land, who will cry and sigh for those who will suffer? This is why these programs and Dr. Pidgeon has joined together with Eating Wild Honey, so that we can speak to those who have not heard and rise up to the challenge, rise up to the call, and take their place. This is why we do this. But what about those who are below the poverty line? In Iran, it's said to be 50, possibly up to 80%. What options do such people have? What options do they have? Hardly any. They're being forced, basically, to get in line. Because if they don't get in line, they'll live in poverty. If they live in poverty, they'll have nothing. They will be in famine. That's why they are forcing, they are coercing this biometric ID. All their resources will be gone. Resources isn't just bread, it's the chickens, the cheese, the vegetable oils, all their essentials, fuel, you name it. Everything that we live on, that we rely on as a daily essential, will effectively be threatened. There will be some type of control into this. And can you imagine already that they are putting such controls and measures in place over their bread? This is the crux. Whoever does not take the digital ID will go into scarcity of food, and that leads into depletion into famine. That's the third. That's the fourth seal. Surely you can see that. I know so many of you can. And to others, this is introducing you to a biblical perspective, which is real because we're seeing it right now unfolding. This means death. This means people will die. This means in that scenario of Iran, people will die. It's one of the 4 sore judgments that you read about in Ezekiel 14 verses 13 to 22. We'll see how far we get with this. So I've got a new system here, and we're just getting things ready. So some things I can't get on for you. So I normally would have the biblical scripture on for you, but I just realized before coming to broadcast that I have to download eSword. So today is really important just to get this word into you, and then for Dr. Pidgeon to come and share what's on his heart, what he has heard from Yah for you, particularly for this week. And that's my heart. That's the direction that I always want. So let's just look at a few things in Ezekiel. So in Ezekiel 14, it says this. I'm starting at verse 13. Understand that this is from the lips, not only of Ezekiel, but from the mind and lips of Yah. It's not just Ezekiel's vision. It is Yah speaking to Ezekiel. 13 starts like this. Son of Adam, when the land sins against me by trespassing grievously, stop there. Here's the reason for Yah's judgments. A land has sinned, trespassing grievously against Yah. That breaks my heart just to say it. And I know that you would feel the same weight of that also. Upon what? Upon the land. When the land sins against me by trespassing grievously, then I will stretch my hand out upon it and will break the staff of bread thereof, and will break the staff of bread thereof. Here is the scarcity I've been speaking of. Here is the 3rd seal, and here is the famine of the 4th seal, all connected. Do you see? This is one of the 4 methods of death, and it's mentioned in Revelation 6:8, the sword, hunger, famine, death by all means, and beasts of the earth. The 2 beasts of Revelation with the weapons of pestilence. There's so much that you can bring out of the 2 beasts of Revelation, including from the perspective of the governing authorities, how we were addressing the truth from Romans 13. You see, there's just so much here that we've got to take in. And this is what you and I have to get. Men don't just die from famine. Men don't just die from famine. It's beasts. Do you see? It's beasts. It's the livestock, the cattle, the pig, the sheep, the lamb, the turkeys, the chickens. They are all slain. I use the word slain because that's the biblical term used. But what we see happening now around the world, whether it be by gassing or whatever, they are being slain. They are being taken down. Why? Because when you get to the animal, you get to humanity. See the connection. Yahuwah cuts off man. Yes, Yahuwah cuts off man by cutting off the food source. And this is what is meant by I cut off the staff of bread. And this is what will send famine. This is what leads us into that. Just think about what we're going through. You can see the seals unfolding now. It's not one seal, then stop, two, third seal, stop, fourth. They are happening consecutively. We are seeing them unfold and divulge and develop more and more intensely. And then it leads into the second, wars and rumors of wars, and it's unfolding with the third and the fourth. Do you see how it's happening? Position yourself, wake up and look up, and you will hear Yah's direction and the rhema of the word come and give you what you need to survive and understand what is happening now. Understand this, the WEF and co, they are just instruments of Yah. They are just simply instruments of Yah who think they are serving Hayel, that's Hasatan. It says the kings bring the evil affections to cover the face of the earth with their demonic tactics. Everything I've said there is quite power-packed in that one sentence. Yah is in control. I say that to you always. They may think they are following Hasatan, but Yah is in control. This is what we've been seeing. 5.3 million pigs slain, hundreds of chickens slain, millions of salmon, deer, and veal slain. Last week, we spoke about food plants being shut down because it shuts down the global supply when one major one in one country is done. Major fires, it was 22 last week, in the USA alone. That is, again, the cutting down the staff of bread. And if you recall, in London 2 weeks ago, maybe, a serious food supplier with a massive fire took place. Again, that is cutting down the staff of bread. That is Yah cutting down the staff of bread. What I'm saying to you, what I'm divulging to you, what we are discussing right now is showing that scripture is happening right now. It's happening right now. To the lukewarm apostate, you will say this is apostasy. I refute that and I say to you, no, this is scriptural and it is happening now. What we see happening in Iran is not something that is far off and won't touch us. It will touch us. You can see the footprint for your own country if you examine it right now. Who does it? Listen to what I'm saying, because there's a pun in the word who, and then you will get it. Who is on first? It is who. They are on first, and there is no second base. I'm talking about the organization who. They now control about 193 countries in the world from the 22nd of May, which is just a few days ago. It's not America. It's not England. It's not any other nation. It's just those who, it's just who the organization who are controlling it. And what concerns me, what concerns, I know Dr. Pidgeon has said this last week, what they deem a national emergency. You know, the countries have lost their power. Presidents and prime ministers, well, what standing do they have? I see them as totally dissolved and nothing but puppet power. They are usurpers of the land. Our land is being usurped. And Yah said, these are grievous things upon his land, and that's why his judgments come. This is the first seal. It's, and excuse me for my term, but it's a raping of the land. And this is the first seal, to conquer and to be conquered, to collapse every business, to make countries bankrupt. And this is what's happening for the last 2 years and 2 months. I want to say to you, wake up, look up. I've said that, wake up and look up. It's carved in stones. The scriptures are fitting like a glove, and it's happening right now. I'm going to play to you this video, and then we're going to hand over to Dr. Pidgeon. This is very, very important. It's everything that I've been saying reported right now.
In fact, he says, I already hear reports of farmers slaughtering their animals because they can't get animal feed for them. This is a travesty. Quote, it's not just corn, it's also soya and numerous byproducts that are hard to defined. There is a tremendous fight to get hold of what is available. VP of Livestock Feed Producer Mangimi Liverini said if dairy cows are slaughtered, it will take 7 to 8 years to build up the dairy supply once again. You see, this is a lasting impact that's happening right now. 7 to 8 years to rebuild, if ever. And of course, we know this is why they're inventing fake milk and fake eggs and all this nonsense. Quote, the problem is that we now have a perfect storm. Ukraine is offline. Other countries have stopped exporting. In Italian ports, where usually ships arrive every week, now we only have 25-day supply left. Farmers are now considering giving the herd less feed as a first step, but may eventually be faced to slaughter some of their animals just to keep the farm going. And speaking of keeping the farm going, this statistic was also released by Italy that 100,000, here it is, 100,000 Italian farms are on the verge of closure. And it was that statistic that made a bunch of headlines. I think the more salient one is this. More than 1 in 10 farms is on the verge of closure, while about 1/3 of them, a third of the farms in Italy, are working on conditions of negative profits. Obviously, you can't do that, right? These are not charities. These are farms. These are families, or at biggest, they're companies, but nobody works on negative profits, not for long, right? So I would say 1/3, not just 1 in 10, are on the verge of closure. This is just Italy. The situation, as we've been seeing, is similar across Europe, where they can't get animal feed. Of course, animal agriculture is also under attack in the United States, where the bird flu outbreak is starting to get some more media coverage. Many more millions of birds have been killed across several states. Iowa, the latest, killing 1.5 million birds. Because of bird flu, because of PCR tests, which say that there's bird flu. Of course, they can get whatever results they want from those tests. Here from WSAW, 12 million out of 320 million flocks in the U.S. has recently tested positive for bird flu. Ladies and gentlemen, that's nearly 4% of the poultry producers in the nation have recently tested PCR test positive for bird flu and is now being deflocked, cold, eliminated, killed, usually gassed. If the farm is providing for a local area, you could see some shortages. Nationwide, not yet, but prices are rising in advance of Easter. There's a bunch of articles about that. Expensive eggs at Easter. What's also happening, though, is that this is causing municipalities to say, animals are dirty and dangerous, and we need you to register your birds. Here's just one example of this from DC, which I realize is not exactly a bastion of freedom, but this is a bellwether for what's happening everywhere else. Here you can apply for your annual chicken permit. This letter, by the way, accompanied this letter from Animal Control, which specifically, it's a citation, specifically calling out someone for having illegal animals, chickens. You can't keep chickens. No, that's an illegal animal. You're trying to feed your family? Not going to happen on the watch of Muriel Mayer there. You can try if you want. You can apply for your annual chicken permit once a year. Renew your paperwork. Papers, please, for these birds in your backyard. Of course, this means the government knows where your birds are, and so when they want, they can come by with a PCR test or just tell you that some wild birds were flying overhead that tested positive, and now we need to gas your birds. We've seen that happening in the UK and now also in the US. And this is just, more of the encroachment on your ability to feed your family. This is going on in the UK as well. Here's a message from DEFRA to one resident saying, oh, there's been an outbreak of bird flu in your area, and so we need you to register your birds. Come give us all your information so that when the time is right, we can come take them away from you. By the way, if you're an attorney in the US or in the UK and you have some idea of how to handle this kind of administrative overreach, just saying feeding our families is a basic human right, and you cannot come and take our birds or kill our birds or even force us to register, please get in touch. We need to, as we build a decentralized food system, they're going to do what they can to stop us. And so I'd like to be armed with knowledge on how to stop that. Send me a note, iceagefarmer@protonmail.com. But it doesn't go as far as the Netherlands, who is now trying to introduce a meat tax. Here.
So you see, it's quite devastating, isn't it? One PCR test and all this happening. It's absolutely ridiculous. But the meat taxes, he only just introduced that, but I want to give time to Dr. Pidgeon. All these viruses and everything that are being brought in, we have to be alert and we have to be awake. Now, with that, I want to welcome Dr. Stephen Pidgeon. It's so wonderful to have you here, Stephen. Just trying to unmute.
1 second. Hey, can you hear me now?
Brilliant. Fantastic. You look so good in white. You look really good. But look, I just want to say this to you, Peter, to Stephen, rather. You look like Peter, the apostle. So many people have said, and I'm summing it up with one comment. Thank you for your academic precision and the biblical weight that you have brought to these programs, both in Eating Wild Honey and in Cepher Answers for Our Time. In the nations that these programs reach, Stephen, I cannot underestimate that they don't get this quality of teaching and presentation. We are a very posh nation, which the cups of teas and everything is under the carpet, and all of a sudden you're bringing it and you're exposing it. They don't get this type of level of news. They don't hear anything against the narrative, and it's making sense. It's opening up the word to them, and they're all at different levels, but they just want to thank you for the depth that you have sown into your life through study and academia, because you are being used for a time such as this. So thank you.
Well, it's my privilege to be able to do this. And I'm very thankful to Yah that he has granted me the opportunity to do this as well, that he continues to feed me as he sees fit. And I have to tell you, Jessica, what you're bringing up right now, I mean, there are some things happening. You know, of course, the satanic coven is meeting there in Davos, Switzerland right now,
Yes.
engaged in really this pagan rite of overthrow, as once again we see the pagan impulse to completely destroy the people of faith entirely and control in accordance with their whim being promoted. And to the extent that Klaus Schwab has told everybody at the World Economic Forum, we have the means to impose any state we so desire.
Yes.
Well, you know, this is something that echoes a voice from the past. You know, Germany über alles, right? Deutschland über alles, Germany over all, right? And once again, we have the means to destroy all of those around us and to impose our will on the world.
Yeah.
But the question that Klaus Schwab never asks, and it's never answered, is, does anybody want your will, Klaus? And the answer is no, no one wants it. Just because you have dummies that are all bought and paid for by a bunch of corrupt drug dealers called pharmaceutical companies doesn't mean that the world wants your solution. The world doesn't want your solution. There's a reason why the world divided Germany following World War II. And this was to prevent just exactly what Klaus Schwab is bringing to the table again, the rise of neo-Nazism.
Yeah.
And, you know, Nazism, and when we talk about Nazism, it's so easy to say, oh, Nazi, you know, and then you just kind of walk right from the table. But the truth is, you have to look at the essence of Nazism. Even though they claimed the support from the Catholic Church, they were fundamentally pagan in everything they did. They were pagan. And not only were they pagan, but they were also decadent. I mean, if you look at Berlin coming into World War II, it was a place of rampant promiscuity, right? And it's no different today. Berlin is, again, a place of rampant promiscuity. And you see that promiscuity spread throughout Germany and spread throughout the Netherlands and, you know, in the Germanic-speaking areas. And to the point that, you know, Commandant Scholz has decided that he's going to send German tanks again into the Baltics and into Ukraine to face off and to kill Russian people again. You know, and this is just, you know, it's just a rerun of World War II, which was a rerun of World War I. I mean, how many times do we have to do this in Europe? I don't know. But we're on to it again. We're on to another iteration of it. Now, there's some very interesting things that are happening in the UK that I think are worthy of discussion.
Yes.
one of the things that happened in the UK, I do believe, was a moment that was directed by Yah, which was the Brexit. Now,
Mm.
say, well, this was organized, engineered, whatever, but Nigel Farage is the one who said, I thought we won World War II. Why are we back under the control of German authorities? The leadership in the EU is not elected. The leadership is appointed, and most of that EU leadership are children of Nazi leaders on the continent. So in 1944, the Nazis held most of the continent of Europe, including including Ukraine, including Poland, including all of these areas, including the Baltics. And only Britain was resistant to the idea of having a swastika hanging from Buckingham Palace. Now, this was the will of Churchill, and Churchill was reflecting the will of the average Brit who said, we're not going there. Now we have a different mood. There are many people in Scotland who want to be a member of the EU. Of course, the people in the Republic of Ireland want to be a member of the EU. They do not want to be under the crown.
Yes.
Quite frankly, the crown has lost a lot of credibility because they are not the defenders of the faith as they took an oath to be. Mm-hmm. Instead, you have Charles promoting Islam.
Yeah.
You have William promoting Islam. You have many mosques coming up across the UK. I mean, it is one thing to say, okay, we're going to have a religious diversity in the UK to some degree, but that should not change the theocratic nature of the British state.
No.
And of course, the fact is that the Anglican Church has been overtaken, if you will, by the Masonic order, as has the political class been overtaken by the Masonic order. And the pop culture has been irreverent since 1963.
Yeah.
So where lies the heart of Britain? Where are those who will rebuild Jerusalem?
Beautiful.
And it cannot be done along the age-old lines of Catholic versus Protestant. We talk about Catholic versus Protestant. We're talking about the question of whether or not Imperial Rome shall have the ultimate sovereignty over the British Isles, or should the King of Britain have the ultimate sovereignty over the British Isles. Mm-hmm. But the Scots long argued in Scottish Presbyterianism in the 1500s that there is one king, and it's not the king who sits on a throne in London, but it is Mashiach, who is our king, who is our lawgiver, who is our judge. Now, with this being said, is there a future for the United Kingdom? Well, it must be a future outside of the Catholic Protestant paradigm. As the Pilgrims once said, and they said this in 1620, the Protestant paradigm did not move far enough away from the Roman Church. And this is the case with Protestantism throughout Europe.
Yeah.
You have churches, like for instance, in the Lutheran Church, Luther never excommunicated himself from the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church excommunicated him from them.
Yes.
So Lutheranism has many of the same trappings of Catholicism, but not the Pope. Anglicanism has many of the same trappings as the Catholic Church, but without the Pope. Instead, we have the King, the divine right of kings, right?
Yeah.
Even the divine right of kings is a question. Because, to say that there will be someone sitting on the throne of David forever and ever, right? Now, if you don't mind, Jessica, I'm going to take we only have a few minutes, but I'm going to take just kind of a side lap.
Yeah.
Because this is a very important thing. And I mapped this out, I think, last week in my program, my Thursday night program that I did on King, the lawgiver, and the judge.
Yes, you did.
Talking about the genealogy in Matthew 1. Now, the genealogy in Matthew 1 is absolutely critical because when you have anti-Mashiachim, anti-Messiah types, people who are anti-missionaries who are quite scholarly at the Tanakh and know the Old Testament very well, and they use the common teaching of the Christian church to say, well, you're just wrong. Like, for instance, in Isaiah where it says, and his name shall be called Emmanuel. But then the anti-missionaries say, well, why wasn't his name Emmanuel then? If his name will be called Emmanuel, then why wasn't his name Emmanuel? How did he end up as Jesus? I thought his name was going to be Emmanuel. Well, if it's not Emmanuel, then this prophecy doesn't apply to him at all. It's a Zippo prophecy. Doesn't mean him, right? And then you have other challenges such as this taking place. So, Mashiach is going to sit on the throne of David, right?
Mhm.
And then Yahweh said unto my Adonai, sit at my right hand. Okay, well, how does Mashiach sit on the throne of David when he's not listed in the lineage of David? If you accept the narrative that his father was the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, and not Joseph, which is the narrative that is given to us, that the Ruach came upon her and that she was, she conceived in accordance with the blessing of the Ruach.
Mm.
Well, and in Luke 3, it goes on to say Joseph, the lineage of Joseph, the supposed father, right?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find that exact language. Because in Luke 3, you have something given to us, and it's given to us very clearly. And it says, the supposed father, the supposed father. These pages are a little thin here. Just a second, I'm almost there. So it says, okay. And Yahusha himself began to be about 30 years of age, being, as was supposed, the son of Joseph. As was supposed, the son of Joseph, right? And then we find out what? Joseph was the son of Eli, who was the son of Matithyahu, who was the son of Levi, who was the son of Malchi, who was the son of Yana, who was the son of Yosef.
Mm.
But in Matthew 1, we have another litany that's telling us Joseph, the husband of Mary. Well, was Joseph, the husband of Mary, somebody different than Joseph, the supposed father of Yahusha? There's a for you.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think the husband of Miriam is the same Joseph who was supposed to be the father of Yahusha.
Wow.
But what does it say his lineage was? Well, it says here that Joseph, the husband of Miriam, his father wasn't Eli at all. It was Yaakov. And Yaakov was the son of Matan, who was the son of Eleazar, who was the son of Eliel, who was the son of Joachim, who was the son of Zadok. Do those names sound like the same names we heard in Luke? Completely different roster of names. And in fact, when you go back, the roster in Luke 3 tells you that Joseph was of the line of Natan or Nathan, the son of David, not Solomon, the son of David.
Wow.
Matthew 1 says he was of the line of Solomon. So something, either Matthew's line or Luke's line, or there's some grievous error in there somewhere. Because if Matthew 1 is about the lineage of Joseph, then guess what? There's no connect between Mashiach and David. Period.
Wow.
No connection whatsoever. Okay? Now, this is what it says in the KJV. This is what it says in the NKJV. This is what it says in the 1560 Geneva, 1537 Coverdale. It says it in the NIV, the ESV, the NASB, the ASB. Almost every Bible on earth says that Matthew 1 is about Joseph, the husband of Miriam. And by the way, it creates an error. When you count up the generations, you're going to find 14, 14, and 13. You will not find 14, 14, and 14.
Wow. So is this what you're going to be covering in more detail when you do your history classes and when you come to the UK and you release your new research?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's going to be part of it. But what's important for us in this understanding to recognize is that Miriam was, in fact, in the line. Yosef was the father of Miriam, too. In other words, she had a father named Yosef.
Okay.
And a husband named Yosef. But her father's name, Yosef, was the one who had the patriarchal authority to get the body off the cross.
Right.
And that would be Joseph of Arimathea. Joseph of Arimathea was the one who got the body off the cross because he was the family patriarch.
Yeah.
Because Joseph, the husband of Miriam, had already died. That's why he doesn't appear in any of the gospel messages, because he had already died.
Okay.
So because of that, now we can start to see a clarity and a truth about the faith. Now, when we understand this, that Mashiach is in fact in the line of David, this is the inheritor to the throne of David. There is no other. All of the other seed of the women, and even though it may be blessed and you may be able to point a lineage back to David, the fact of the matter is the true king is Mashiach. Now, you either believe that the Messiah is living or you don't.
Of course, yeah.
he is, and I don't know how many times it's spoken in scripture that he is a living El, right? Mashiach says to the scribes and the Pharisees, he says, look, he says, you want to talk about, it is written that he is the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And I tell you, he is, and he is the Elohim of the living and not of the dead. He's telling them that the resurrection exists, that Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are alive, and they are alive in a living Elohim who too is alive.
Yeah, beautiful.
So if we agree that Mashiach is living, then Mashiach sits on the throne. And if Mashiach sits on the throne, there is no divine right of kings. Now, with all that being said, now where does that leave us? Where does that leave us in the UK? It leaves us with the notion that we must leave behind the tenets. It's an impossible task. Can it be done?
Yes.
No, it can't be done. Certainly can't be done by me, but it can't be done by Yah, right? It can't be done by me, but it can be done by Yah, which is we must leave behind the trappings of the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church and all of that. And we must seek and find the true faith, which was built on its foundations in Western Britain. It was built in Britain, not in England. It was built in Britain, not in Wales. It was built in Britain, not in Ireland. It was built in Britain, not in Scotland. It was built on these isles. And it was built as a true faith, and a faith that did what? That kept the Shabbat, a faith that kept the true feasts, a faith that walked in the true calendar, And then everybody who's got political authority, well, I can use that text to raise myself up as political authority. So let's modify that, change the word Yahweh over to Lord, so that people get confused between me as my Lord and my Lord when they pray. Right?
Absolutely. We were just speaking at the beginning of Romans 13 and how that has been corrupted about the higher authorities, because they're saying it's the governments, the leadership, when actually it's our Elohim. So it ties in with what you're saying.
Yeah, amen. And the worst corrupted form of 13.1 I'd ever heard was out of the PTL that Jimmy Baker and Tammy Faye Baker.
Yeah.
They produced a Bible and it said, obey the governing authority and pay your taxes.
They
just added the pay your taxes.
Oh my goodness.
Right? There was no substantiation for that anywhere.
No.
When you're paying taxes, Mashiach said something very keen.
Yeah.
He said, show me the coin. He says, well, this has the picture of Caesar on it. That which is Caesar, give unto Caesar. Well, so this is the fact. I mean, the truth is, what is the greatest offender of the edict, the scriptural command? Thou shalt have no engraven images. Well, it's money.
Yeah.
Right? Coins are an engraven image, right?
Yes.
And so you have this engraven image, and we know that the coin is fiat currency. It's fake. It doesn't exist except that we say it exists.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas when you have gold and silver, and you have copper, and you have polonium and palladium and plutonium and all of these other things that are real metals, those real metals have real value.
Yes.
This is and they have real value, whether they're engraved or unengraved, whether it's in a nugget form or a pure form, whatever. They have real value because this is Yah's currency. The currency with somebody's face on it belongs to that person. It belongs to that political class. That's why Mashiach said, give to Caesar that which is Caesar's, and give to Yah that which is Yah. Right? So when you talk about gold, silver, precious jewels, precious gemstones, copper, nickel, silver, these kinds of things are all part and parcel of Yah's currency. So there's a real calendar, there's a real faith, there's a real truth, there's a real living Yah, there's a real king, a real lawgiver, and a real judge. And this is to whom we owe allegiance. Now, this is not to say, gee, let's everybody rebel against the queen or let's everybody rebel against parliament. I'm just asking people to have a recognition that their allegiance needs to be to the living Elohim. He is the one who's governing our lives. Now, if you say, well, I'm going to hang on to my allegiance to the crown, okay, well, feel free, hang on to your allegiance to the crown. But when you look at what's going on, Britain has at least had the integrity to tell its people at least somewhat of the truth. For instance, they have admitted that over 160,000 people died from the snake bite within 60 days of getting it. And over 60,000 people died within 30 days of getting it. That 92% of the people that died from COVID in the hospitals in the month of March in 2022 were fully vaccinated people. This is coming from actual British sources, published British Health Ministry, saying this is the truth in Britain.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we want to say about that? Well, hem haw. Well, no, there's no hem or hawing about it. These are just what the facts are. And when you look at what's going on with an orchestrated food shortage, look, Russia's having a bumper wheat crop.
Yes. Yes.
And China is having an even bigger wheat crop than Russia, but China is not an exporter. They're keeping all their wheat. India is keeping all of their wheat. And so now there's a rescue mission that's being planned. Let's get the British fleet into the Black Sea to govern ships that can take all of Ukraine's grain and get it out of Ukraine and take it back to Britain, so that we can do to Ukraine exactly what we did to Ireland in 1847, which is remove all the food from Ireland so that the Irish can starve to death and so that we have food in Britain, right?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have to be this way. We didn't have to go to war.
Mm-hmm.
But when you listen to generals, what nobody's telling them no, all they want to do is go to war. Well, we need to go to war. Why do we need to go to war? Because I've been a general for 40 years and I don't have my war medallion yet. I didn't become a general to not go to war. I became a general to go to war. Mm-hmm. Well, it's the responsibility of the prime minister. It's the responsibility of the president to tell the general, great, I'm glad you don't have your decoration, but no, we're not going to war. Mm-hmm. So you can get one. Because when you have war, people die and stuff gets wrecked. Yeah. Right? The great hero of the world, Vladimir Zelensky, the great hero, right? Our high-heeled transgendered friend. He's out telling the world, oh, yeah, well, we've had $1 trillion worth of infrastructure damage done in Ukraine. Now we're going to need $1 trillion from the EU to rebuild like a European capital. Well, Vlad, I'll tell you what, buddy. Maybe you shouldn't have put 100,000 troops on the Donbass border sporting Nazi swastikas tattooed on their skin, saying that they were going to eliminate and exterminate every Russian speaker. Maybe if you kept that mouth shut and you hadn't taken that step, you wouldn't have $1 trillion worth of infrastructure damage being done in your country. Maybe that wouldn't happen. Well, we don't talk about that at all. In fact, you're excluded from ever raising that subject ever, because I am the great hero of the world. I'm the strong, brave guy who managed to become a billionaire in 2 years after taking the presidency, and I'm waiting to retire so I can get to my $40 million home in Miami.
You got it. And we're like pawns, aren't we, really? The other side of the coin of what you were saying is, whilst they want their medallions, there is the financial side. Someone's profiting, countries are profiting. We're like pawns, we're of no pawns, we're of no consequence to them. The other thing that comes to mind, Stephen, is the fact that you've said in the past, NHS and the BBC, huge establishments, masonry, huge establishments in this country. It's a small remnant that will break through because everyone is so tied into that. So I see what you're saying, and it's an impossible task except for Yah intervening. So that means this called out ones, these remnant, we have to be in place. I'm still waiting to see the connection. I'm ready. That's what we're doing. We're assembling and we're getting ready. But in the natural, it's impossible.
Yeah, in the natural, it's impossible. But with Yah, everything is possible.
Yes.
And, and the thing is with the remnant is that, it really doesn't matter, Jessica, whether we live or die. The main thing is how we live, right?
Yes.
It's how we live. And do we live with honor and respect? And do we live with holding him as sacred? Do we do that or do we not?
Exactly.
Now, with what's coming now, you can see, I mean, we talked about the report last week about the apocalyptic financial panic that's going to be happening in Britain. And of course, it's getting far worse now. I mean, I heard yesterday that gas is now $7.69 in LA, right? Pushing on $8 a gallon. Yeah. They shut down the gas stations in Washington to change up their gas tanks to accommodate $10 or higher per gallon of gas. Now, of course, you guys pay by the liter. You're already well up over $12 a gallon in Britain of gas. And diesel is now running out, right? Yes. And so they know this. And of course, everything they're doing, this is all being done intentionally by the governing powers. Yes. They're all doing this intentionally. They want to, substantially reduce the population of the United States, substantially if you go back and you look at the Deagle report, there's no reduction in the population in Tunisia at all. There's no reduction in Morocco or Egypt or Saudi Arabia. There's no reduction plan there at all. In the UK, 30 million people fewer. In the United States, 200 million people fewer. In fact, 250 million people fewer. In Canada, 15 million people fewer, right? This is what the report is saying. This will be the condition by 2025. Because somebody got together and followed Maurice Strong and Mikhail Gorbachev at the behest of Prince Philip and his mates, including Al Gore, and said, we need to adopt the protocols of Agenda 2021, or which now Agenda 30, to depopulate these areas. Now, you can say, well, man's a carbon offender. Well, if man is a carbon offender, then we know that the top offender is China because they've got 1.4 billion. The second top offender is India, right?
Mm.
If man's pollution is the offender, then we know the top offender is China, not the U.S. We have less than 400 million people. There's less than 400 million people on all of North America. If you killed every single person in North America, China and India would make up the loss of that population in 5 years.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's a good way of looking at it. Goodness.
Right? And man has a carbon footprint. No, he doesn't. Of all the carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide that is put into the atmosphere, 98% of it is evaporated off the surface of the ocean.
Mm. Mm.
Okay, so you're not reducing anything by telling everybody you can't exhale anymore. That is absolutely bogus nonsense, and it's bogus nonsense in order to hit you with yet another tax to take everything you own from you.
Mm. Mm.
What they're trying to do. This is Klaus Schwab's idea. Take everything they own, and then we Nazis will be in the power seat. Hey.
Wow, that's good. It was at the beginning of all this, it was called the Forgiveness Project. I don't know if the name's changed, but the scheme's exactly the same of what you're saying. So, and electricity in the UK today by October is going up per household by £800 on top of what it already has risen. So we got the warning today. So, yep, you're right. You're correct.
Yeah, it's because nobody can get Russian natural gas,
Mm.
right? And Russia's they're saying, well, we have it all, and we'll be happy to ship it to you. It's not Russia that said we're not going to ship any more natural gas.
Mm.
It's Russia said you can't sell any more of that to us. We're going to teach you. We're going to, I'm going to fix you, Mom. I'm going to hold my breath until I pass out. Nanny, boo boo. The dumbest political stuff I've ever seen. Only a demented fool like Joe Biden could promote such a concept, unless it's being done intentionally.
Yes.
By his boss, sits in the unelected seat at the White House named Barack Obama, telling him, do this, do that, do this, do that, do the other thing. Otherwise, we can't destroy the United States. Otherwise, we can't destroy the United Kingdom. Otherwise, we can't end British colonization policies. Otherwise, we can't end Canada. Otherwise, we can't terminate the financial resources of Australia. Otherwise, we can't decimate New Zealand. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. How else will we bring about Muslim supremacy and the rising Mahdi? How else will we do it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we have to eliminate that theocracy that's armed to the teeth called Russia.
Interesting. Wow. And you're on top form here. We've just got, I'm so absorbed in this, but it's 54. So you've got a few minutes to go. So it's always the case. You get to the fire and then we've got to come to an end to crux.
The introduction, Jessica. Now okay, now we've hit the table of contents. Now what? Yeah. So I just want to say that in the UK, for those of you who are hearing this message and are beginning to hear the inner sanctity of the Scripture, the inner truth of Scripture.
Yeah.
When you come to discover what it is, you'll find out that the Anglican Church and its methodologies do not reflect the teaching of Scripture. It reflects a modification of Roman authority. And the ancient paradigm between Rome and British control over the British Isles must come to an end. And it can only come to an end, in the words of Scotland, when you come under the one true king, which is Mashiach. Which is the Ben Adam, the Ben Elohim, the Son of Man and the Son of Yah.
Powerful. So powerful. Wow. That's powerful. Wow. Thank you, Stephen.
So hopefully we're going to see this kind of, this was the kind of teaching that spawned the Puritans. It's the kind of teaching that spawned a walk away. And as far as the Puritans walked away, they did not walk away from the Roman collar, which is Sunday worship.
Mm.
Sunday worship is the Roman collar. We don't care what you say. We don't care if you can denounce Rome until the cows come home.
Yeah.
If you're in church on Sunday morning, our leash is around your neck.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You know, Stephen, I don't believe that we're going to come into a revival, but what you're personally doing is you are renewing and you are reviving seed into people, into homes, in communities, personally. It's so diverse. I say it all the time, but because I represent so many people, not me, we represent so many people, we are reaching so many, they are coming and asking questions, and this is so new to them. So you're doing an introduction for 2-3 weeks. That's what they need. They have never had this. They're now taking the milk and making it meat. So I just commend you to do more, because that is what I receive day by day, to say, I never had this. I'm at this age in my life and I'm only hearing it now, but it makes sense. And they're just pursuing and they're just inheriting. So for you to be encouraged with that as well, I want to thank you, because I couldn't do what you do, but I'm facilitating the ability for you to reach these people and nations, communities. And it's a privilege to just serve Yah like this. And it's important for you to know that as well.
You know, I'm just doing what I can in accordance with what Yah wants me to do.
Yeah.
And I just pray for everyone who's listening to this, that they might be blessed in this,
Yes.
not be offended, but take the time to be those who have eyes to see, and ears to hear the truth of Yahweh Elohim.
Yes. And with that, we need to say goodbye, how much we cherish and love you. I just want to say this in context of every dynamic thing that Stephen has said today. There has, and this is biblical, it's in the book of Esdras, there has been no time like this, nor has there been any time like this in the past, nor will there be any time to come like this, for this is the end of time. Yah bless you. Take care. We will see you on Friday. All the best.
Few people laughed. Few people cried. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Ever seen a blind man cross the road, trying to make the other side, baby? Ever seen a young girl growing old, trying to make herself a bride? So what becomes of you, my love?
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Pray that he's still out there. Somewhere.